So, this is part two to the Menlo Park scandal. I streamed this not yesterday, but the day before yesterday. So, if
Hello,
you
everybody.
are like watching this post stream and you want to go back and look at that, yeah, that stream was done day before yesterday. But I just did like one stream for it, whereas this one I'm like mixing it in, so that's like the only difference. Uh,
I'm back. And I know there was a lot of information, and that was a long video in part one, and there was a lot of information in there. And I appreciate all of you sending me private emails and asking questions and telling me things. I appreciate it. Yes, I
oops.
do have the investigators' permission to make this video public. I did ask them before I put it on our channel, and they said they didn't think that it would interfere with the investigation. I am still trying to upload all the files to their website. There's a lot of them, and they're going to have to go through them to make sure I could release them publicly. Um, so just be patient, before I release these files. Um, like I said, I would need their permission. It's totally up to them because I don't want to mess up the investigation. Um, and I had a question about the check that John was talking about. There's actually a couple of checks that they found. And like he mentioned the name, and it's going through the Japanese congregation in that area. Now, what's interesting about these checks, and yes, I had to scratch, black out the account number. But what's interesting about these checks is this one that I showed the screenshot in yesterday. This check is for $250,000. Now stop and think about if they are doing this with other people that don't have a will. Well, Prince, for example, the famous celebrity singer Prince, he was allegedly a JW and he didn't have a will. That's what we heard back then, that there was no will. And the family was contesting it because Watchtower was trying to get it. Of course, we haven't heard what happened with that. But, you newer ones may not know that there was, some questions about Prince's estate. That's got to be worth millions of dollars. So imagine if they pull this same crap on all these others that maybe even have a slight connection with the organization. Michael Jackson, his family are JWs. How do we know, the same thing wasn't going on? Of course, his family being JWs, I'm sure they gave a chunk of it to Watchtower anyway. But see, this is what we need to look at. You cannot go after them on doctrines. You just can't, because the First Amendment. And John even mentioned that. And I know we kind of stopped the video right when it was getting interesting and he was talking about, these checks. Now, I also want to mention that they also have the deposit slips. Watchtower is going to hate this. They really are, because this is exposing them for what and who they really are. And yeah, I've got some who are like, this is crazy conspiracy theorist stuff. No. No. The bank and that account by the municipality is made out to the Japanese congregation Jehovah's Witnesses. So once again, I appreciate all of you, who are watching this and listening, because, and I would love to see this video go viral, because this is information that we've got to get out. Another one of the emails I had this morning, thank you, sweetie, they thought they were the only ones that was being harassed and weird things going on in their congregation. Now they said thanks to, they really are Watchtower anyway. But see, this is what we need to look at. You cannot go after them on doctrines. You just can't, because the First Amendment. And John even mentioned that. And I know we kind of stopped the video right when it was getting interesting and he was talking about, these checks. Now, I also want to mention that they also have the deposit slips. Watchtower's going to hate this. They really are, because this is exposing them for what and who they really are.
And that's like something else too that you always hear about, like scandals going on in Watchtower, and people are like, well, how could that happen? Well, this is how it happens, because they were able to get this money, what you said before, for the check. They were able to get the money with the check for 200, she said it was like $250,000 on the check, and that person had a will. So that person had a will and they were able to get that, then what were they, like, imagine what they're doing to people who don't have wills before their death, and how they're trying to, uh, every type of, like, someone who comes into money, they join Watchtower, their kids are not in the truth, but the parents are, and you hear a lot about how Watchtower ends up taking land from families, houses, and apparently they can just go around and write checks and be fine for whatever. Like, this is a lot. This is a lot that's like unpacked, and now like people finally have proof. Like, proof is now finally out there in the public about this.
And yeah, I've got some who are like, this is crazy conspiracy theorist stuff. No. No. The bank and that account by the municipality is made out to the Japanese congregation Jehovah's Witnesses. So once again, I appreciate all of you, who are watching this and listening, because, and I would love to see this video go viral, because this is information that we've got to get out. Another one of the emails I had this morning, thank you, sweetie, they thought they were the only ones that was being harassed and weird things going on in their congregation. Now they said, thanks to, these videos, the puzzle pieces are being put into place. So this is a good thing. This is a good thing, because if anybody knows of a crime, my goodness, we need to let these investigators know. And ultimately, the lawyers they are working with. So anyway, make some popcorn. We've got more interesting stuff, and I'm going to try to edit this video as short as possible, but there's so much information that he is giving us of what the family has been through the past 15 years. And clarification, the federal court case, the RICO, now this was the first RICO case filed against Watchtower back in 2010, I believe he said. This case hasn't been going on for 15 years, and the statute of limitations ran out, and then the clerk, said, no, it's not going to work. No, that's not what happened. What happened is the clerk just dismissed the case fraudulently. The judge did not sign the dismissal. The clerk forged the judge's signature. So, I just wanted to clarify that this court case did not go on for the past 15 years. No, the case was dismissed within the statute of limitations. Plus, may I remind you, RICO charges, there is no statute of limitations. And I also want to mention, I've been going through the court documents, and here in this document, it's a transcription of the court case they did have. And they're talking to a Mr. Rouse, Watchtower's lawyer, and they have the court. When there is a testimony, we will send them out. Mr. Rouse says, Your Honor, a complaint was filed against these three named party defendants who are ministers in a local Menlo Park congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm sure it's the three elders that are the ones that came in, the goon squad. They are current ministers of the congregation, and the complaint was filed by our ex-minister, one that has been removed by the organization. Now, see, we know they've done this in the past. They remove them, disfellowship them, and then, this is just a, disgruntled ex-minister that was moved by our organization, and that's why he's, complaining and whistleblowing. Okay, but this is the important part. This is in his testimony of the court documents. And I say organization, I am general counsel for the National Organization of Jehovah's Witnesses out of Brooklyn, New York. So now we know who he is. Ordinarily, I wouldn't be here, but this is one of our 13,000 congregations in the United States. How many abuse survivors would have loved to have the transcript of this to put in as evidence in their lawsuits? So if any of you are filing lawsuits and would like a copy of this, I can let you have the case number and what page it's on and all that information, because this is good to have, because it set a precedence. Okay? I am general counsel, blah, blah, blah. Ordinarily, I wouldn't be here, but this is one of our 13,000 congregations in the United States. We are a hierarchical religion structure just like the Catholic Church. How many Jehovah's Witnesses would be shocked to hear that testimony from their general counsel for the National Organization of Jehovah's Witnesses?
That's something I always brag about during like assemblies or whatever, is that Jehovah's Witnesses are nothing like the Catholic Church. Their structure is completely different. Their roles are completely different, and now this comes out. I'm so happy that this information is coming out. I really am.
And when the order from the Pope comes down in the church defrocking a priest and kicking him out, he no longer has any say in any matter in the local parish priests in the parish. So that is the comparison they made as to, don't listen to these, disgruntled ex-ministers, ex-elders who are trying to, bring fraud forward. Oh, no. Totally sidestep that and just make it, he's just disgruntled, and try to discredit them for this. Amazing. Amazing. I mean, how low will Watchtower and their lawyers stoop? It just makes you wonder. Nothing would surprise me after listening to this and, the horror stories we have heard for the past 12 years. Nothing would surprise me anymore. So, anyway, hope you enjoy this, and thank you everybody so much for letting me know in the comments and emails that you appreciate this information getting out. And I'm sure John and his family will see the love and support from this community and down in the comments. So thank you once again, John, for allowing us to do this, and we hope it helps. We hope it helps. And I wish so much that our moms could see some of the stuff that we have been seeing for the past 12 years of the shenanigans that Watchtower has been doing and the criminal activity. So, let me remind everybody, it's not about the Bible and, God's loving people and they're good Christians. No, far from it. Far from it. These people are not good Christians. All they care about is the money and their organization. So, like I said, make some popcorn. I'm going to try to edit this down as, short as possible. I want to apologize for not getting this uploaded yesterday, but we were having horrible thunderstorms. I mean, hailstorms too. We had hail, this big. And so I wasn't able to get it uploaded because we have satellite internet. And I apologize. I've been trying to call several of you who've been wanting me to call you, and I haven't been able to because of the storms. But I want to mention some interesting things have been going on in the past couple of days. Also, the contacts I've been getting, and I've talked to John again, and I just want to mention that several have contacted me and said, "Oh my God, I thought I was the only one." Many are going and fighting Watchtower because they've tried to take over properties, assets, you name it. Someone even contacted me and said that the used to be RBC, but now they're the LDC, had asked them to borrow their tractor, and now they're putting pressure on them for this person to donate their tractor to, do their kingdom halls and building and stuff like that. So I mean, like I said, nothing surprises me anymore. But I just want to thank everybody for the love and support, and for the families that have been dealing with this, especially the Cobb family. At least you know you're not alone, and this XJW community will support you. And you don't have to suffer in silence and be alone anymore, because this information is getting out. And oh yeah, I wanted to also mention someone.
That's another way that I believe Watchtower gets a lot of their property that they so-called donations handed to them. And it's not because people want to, it's because when a congregation is trying to get someone to donate something to them, especially if it's for, like, a lot of people come in and for like Kingdom Hall buildings, and they'll have a lot of support. Sometimes people in that community will see them and will want to help because they see it as helping to build a church. And then they get pressured because sometimes it's not just one congregation, it's like 3 or 4 congregations going to that same kingdom hall. So they'll get pressured into it, and that's how Watchtower gets their stuff, is by basically, pressuring them and potentially, bullying them for something, instead of, just going out and getting their own stuff, because it's not like they don't have the money to do it when they absolutely do. And it's such a sad thing. It's such a sad thing to see property fall into Watchtower's hands because someone was pressured into it. It is such a sad thing.
Had sent me They actually sent me a recording, and I'm not sure if I can release it yet because they're actually fighting this in court. But one of Watchtower's high ups even tried to take his own mother's estate and have her declared incompetent. So, and it's not in this country, it's another country. I think he worked at the branch or something like that. So this is the kind of stuff that everybody's trying to deal with, and this is good. And John, be sure to share with your family. This is good though, because it's showing everyone they're not alone in this fight. Everybody thought they were alone and this was an isolated case. No, it's not. We even know of a case here in the United States where an retired circuit overseer, and he passed away, and now the family have been fighting Watchtower because the elders came in and got the widow to sign a power of attorney, and they coerced her, and they've been fighting it for years. So they'll even do it to their own ex-circuit overseer wives. This is insane. This is crazy. But anyway, just wanted to do a quick update.
I seem to recall we were on Quada. So, what made this so interesting is Quada was Asian, and they tried pushing the money through the Japanese Menlo Park congregation. I think the thinking behind it was they could hide the transaction based upon race. He was an Asian man, and the congregation was Asian, and no one would ask too many questions, and it would go like without a hitch, is I guess what they thought. But the more I dug into the check, the more fraud and corruption it uncovered. And that's one thing the Watchtower is afraid of. They are deathly afraid of that check because it's hard evidence. It's a transaction that can be traced, and they can destroy all their records and say, we don't have a check, we never got a check. They would say that they're that stupid. But we have a copy of the transaction and everything, and it all works because there's Jehovah's Witnesses placed in the bank, in the Santa Clara County office, in the hospital. But see, it went something like this. This hospital liaison committee is really a front to find out who's about to die, for lack of a better word or way to describe it, and who has, because in the records department it keeps everything, bank accounts, next of kin, who to contact in case of emergency. It has all your banking information for insurance purposes. So all they need you to do is really die. So someone who works in the records department liaisons with someone who is in the hospital liaison committee, and they tell them, oh, this person is about to die. Then all of a sudden they love bomb the person and drop by and visit them a lot so that they can build up a history. So that way when they claim that, oh, they left us this money and we were faithfully going by and seeing him in the hospital every week. That's what that's all about. They're trying to build an instant history, if you will. But the transactions, as you can see, are all based on death. And that's no different than grave robbing, high-tech grave robbing. And that's what we accused them of. One of the charges that we accused them of. Excuse me. But we had to file a series of cases, and they all wound up back in Judge Jeffrey White's court. And I'm finishing explaining that. But it became very apparent that we weren't going to be able to file any case anywhere on anything against the Watchtower. And someone in the legal community let us know off the record that any case filed with the last name Cobb and it's against the Watchtower, it's going to be derailed. And that was like 10, 12 years ago. And that has been the case. And that's another reason why I came forward. Because something about... I tried working with Zalkin. I tried to contact him. I emailed him twice. I called twice. I faxed him twice. He never once talked to me. He never once got on the phone. He never once said, well, what do you have? Because I tried to give him this information that I'm giving you. And Zalkin, for all his genius, he's a pompous, arrogant ass. Because he didn't even take the time to see what I got, and I'm bringing you something that can help and benefit your clients. That's why I wasn't really going to come forward, because it seems everywhere I went, all people were interested in. This airplane passed by. I lost my train of thought because of an airplane. But anyway, yeah, that's it's peculiar when you're trying to report a crime and everyone's trying to cover it up. or everyone's telling you, oh, thank you for telling us. We'll get right on that. And that's what you'll see with the SEC document. I filed a case against the Watchtower because they were obviously using money that they got through, illegal means to play the stock market. And they sent me a letter back, about a week later, and they said we can't confirm or deny if there's an investigation against the Watchtower, but thank you for bringing this to our attention. And I'm sure that was buried, but at least they responded. I tried a number of things to report the crime, and it just seems like no one was interested in hearing it. So that's why I was really leery about coming forward, and that's why I didn't care about the evidence I collected is damning to the Watchtower, and that's why the state of California just seems hell-bent on ignoring anything that the Watchtower does. And I'm kind of getting sick of them, getting out of this or wiggling out of that, and then claiming, well, Jehovah was on our side, and that's why we won. No, you won because you had some clerk doing something illegal, some subterfuge or something to the case, or sabotage or whatever. That's all we experienced. Like I said, the only honest judge in federal court in San Francisco is Judge Maria James. No other judge I trust. They're all compromised, or I feel they're compromised, because this is California. It's known to be corrupt. We have a reputation for being corrupt, and it's embarrassing. But they don't seem to want to do anything about it. They need a certain amount of corruption to exist and to do business. And like I said, so when I heard about this, and I can't remember where I first heard about this. I think it was the gentleman who's in Arizona, or something. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. Nice beard, but he was the first person that mentioned something about a case and a lawyer. Kazalkin was an idiot. I mean, he just wouldn't listen, and I'm trying to help him, and that's why when I first heard about this, I was like, so what? I mean, I could probably supply them all the smoking gun evidence that they need, but are they going to do anything? And that's why, for a long time, I just listened or tuned into a few podcasts, but it was like I was taking a wait and see kind of attitude, and because I've had enough of the Watchtower. I've had enough of them acting high and mighty, thinking they're the mafia or something, and how they bully people behind the scenes is just sickening. It's just sickening, and I'm not the kind of guy you can bully. And the Watchtower really plays dirty. I mean, we didn't realize or understand the level that they play dirty. But when they kicked the door into Arlen's house and took his grandchild, Child Protective Services, that killed him. That really killed him. And the Watchtower was behind it. And that's the funny thing. They work through third parties, and then they stand back and say, well, we haven't done anything. That was that situation. Bad luck on your part. And I just got tired of that, knowing that they were behind the things, and they were doing stuff, and their reach is very far. They're quite powerful. But and everywhere I went, everybody's like, well, aren't you scared? Aren't you worried about the Watchtower? I don't want to say this, but I have friends. It's an insult when the Watchtower comes across like some heavy. It irks me, because they're not tough guys. All they're doing is preying upon 8 million people, their own flock. And I'm kind of a different guy. I grew up as a witness, but my life took a different turn, and I don't really regret it. I'm saying I made my own choices, but I came in contact with a lot of different people, and the Watchtower are nothing but posers. They're wannabe tough guys, and everybody bows down to them. And I was just so sick and tired of that. And I thought, well, this Travis guy, Travis, lawyer, probably the same thing, And I was just so frustrated to the point that it was about to come to violence. It really was, because they done so much. They arranged for Arlen to lose his granddaughter. Child Protective Services never said why. They tried to kill Joseph, Arlen's son, ran him off the road. I have video of that and the aftermath. When he was down in the hospital in emergency, I went down and asked him on camera if he thought it was an accident, and he said no, it wasn't. And they ruined my brother's 18-year marriage, and they demonstrated that just the Watchtower has a lot of control, because they ruined the marriage with just one phone call. And my brother had accumulated a lot of the banking evidence on a certain hard drive, which came up missing. His own wife stole the hard drive and turned it into a brother who's on some committee. And that's the hard thing about it. I've watched people that I've known for 20, 30, 40 years turn on us at the drop of a hat, just because 11 idiots or 12, or however how many there is, some idiots who call themselves a governing body. It just irks me, and because
That's something that I never understood, even as like a child. Like because I also grew up in Watchtower, is how how is it that people see this as being a unification from God when it's however many men, the governing body and their assistants or whatever, sitting there and making decisions for 8 million people to follow? I mean, and all of this is somehow into their best interest, even when it's like no matter what's going on, the outcome is always in the best interest of the governing body and to favor Watchtower's pockets, no matter what it is. And it's so sickening to constantly have to sit there and watch this play out when you just know in the back of your head, like, they're the ones that goes out of their way with their money to manipulate things so they can say that it was Jehovah's way of doing it when it's not. It's not, because that's not who they serve. And they claim that they don't eat from two different tables. They absolutely do, because they claim to do one thing while in the background they're doing the exact other. And it's so sickening to constantly see.
they're cowards and they're punks. And I don't say anything behind anybody's back that I can't say to their face. And I have said it to their face. Apparently, I'm an anomaly to them. I'm someone that they can't use the usual tactics on, the usual threats. I remember when we were going to court, they were telling everybody, well, stay away from John Jr. He's an apostate, and he's an enemy of Jehovah, and I kept hearing this, and I went to Smith. We were going to court at that time, and I said, if I hear that I'm an enemy of Jehovah one more time, I will come after you, and I will sue the Watchtower, and I will put just one name down, Don Adams, and he was president of the Watchtower then at that time. He's since then died, but they never announce their deaths. Like, a Jehovah's Witness is supposed to be immortal, but he died, and that was the only way that they stopped and left me alone. I've had to consistently push back every time they pushed at me, and it has been going on consistently for 10 or 12 years now. And they have tried to put me in positions where, tried to get me arrested with the police, and it's just, and that's another thing. People say, well, why didn't you just go to the police? We did. Very early in this, we went to the Menlo Park Police Department, and we had an investigator assigned. His name was, I think it was Keaton, something Keaton. Well, it was Michael C. He's since then retired and moved to Oregon. And it was right after he was about to file for a warrant for Ernest Breedy's arrest. He was going to file for a warrant for, is it Donald Showers, Ernest Breedy? He was going to arrest 4 of them. And the Watchtower then made a phone call to the chief of police in Menlo Park and said, in no uncertain terms, if anyone is arrested, we will sue the Menlo Park Police Department for religious harassment. And the Menlo Park Police Department is they have a reputation. They will do anything to avoid a lawsuit. That if that means compromising the law, they will do that too. So they didn't make an arrest, and not long after that, the investigator Keaton was shipped off to Portland, Oregon, and he hasn't been back. It seems like everyone who got near this case, somehow or another, they got fucked up, or something happened to them, or just. And at first it started looking random, but it wasn't. It was like, and it got so bad that the legal community was staying away from us. They had put out their bad news, and don't help those guys, and that's what we learned is when you hire an attorney, he works for the court first, you second. So it just made no sense paying money to a person who's going to do what the court wants them to do when he's looking like he's taking on your case. He's not. And we were very naive about that, but we learned very quickly that's why we did the case ourselves. We approached it with common sense. Common sense has to be common law, and common law should be simple. And it really was. We weren't procedurally, we were lacking in certain court etiquette, but the approach was it was the right approach for us, because it was very easy. Showing their guilt was very easy, and it got to the point that even Judge James was very curious. And so when the dismissal came, I wasn't buying it, because Judge James was very curious, because she knew there was something about the bank records, because we had requested the bank records 3 times, and Anthony Smith just ignored it, and it was like, who the hell do you think you are, and his thing was, you're not going to ever get them bank records, you're not going to ever see them, and they ignored half of our subpoenas, and it just got to be a mess, where Judge James told him, if you have not provided those bank records when I return from, being off calendar on vacation, I will make a court order. And that's what scared him. He was not willing to give up those bank records. But looking back on it now, and we didn't have the laws in place then to be able to go after him, the Watchtower. We have the laws in place now, and that's why I was writing up a lawsuit, and I was going to take another run at him, because I figured win or lose, I would expose them and expose all that they've done. Because one thing I can tell you about the Watchtower, they don't want any kind of scandal, any kind of hint of impropriety or something was done wrong. They can't afford it. Um, and that's why I was going to take it back into court. But when Trump became president, he wrote so many executive orders that it was like, oh well, now I've got legal grounds to go after them, and I was going to sue them under the executive order 13818 because I figured that would trigger the Department of Justice to have to get involved if I could, you know, sue them under that statute. But none of us have given up. This has been the last 15 years of our life. We can't give up. The Watchtower will be all over us. I mean, they're using some kind of propaganda department. These guys sit in a room. 6 guys, at least it was 6 guys when I first heard about the system that they have. But 6 guys, and all they do all day long is surf the internet. And all they do is look for anything that's going to become a scandal, and then if it is, their propaganda machine starts right up. And it's so systematic that it's sickening, and then when they get the propaganda, they figure under control, or they have told the narrative from their perspective on what they want to put out. Then they go with the next phase, and the next phase is usually crush your enemies, trample you into the dirt, and don't leave you alive. And as if to say, you don't mess with the Watchtower. We some bad dudes. You don't mess with us. And they're punks. They're punks. And that's what offends me. They're punks trying to masquerade as tough guys. And they're bullying their own people, and they're using, because what we found out is when they were laundering money, they were hiding behind the congregation expenses. So it used to be, I don't know if they still do it now, but when I was a kid, if they were going to send money to the society, somebody would say, well, I make a motion that we send this money to the society. And someone would say, I second that motion. Well, when that happens, everyone in the congregation becomes an accessory after the fact to the money laundering. So even though they're innocent.
This is something that I tried to explain to my family when I was telling them that I was going to leave, as to why, and why I was going to write a letter to Bethel to disassociate from Jehovah's Witnesses. And it wasn't, just that I disagreed with the religion doctrine itself and I didn't want to be a part of it. It was stuff like this, because what he's saying is true. It's right. Because the last time I was sometime after 2020. So within the past, within the past 5 years, okay? This, exactly what he's saying, happened, where the congregation that I was in did want to send money to Bethel, and this is how they make that motion go. This is what they do. And everyone in the Kingdom Hall, I guess it's kind of like also another way to make the rank and file feel important, because they can make a motion to say, we want to send this money to Bethel, and we need to like, everyone or every publisher is expected to put, I don't know, however much, let's say $5 for however long in the contribution box. Every publisher expects them to put $5 in the contribution box every week. something like that. Like that's how they make the motion go on, and it absolutely does not surprise me that there is a money laundering scandal within Watchtower for all the other things that they have been caught with their hands in the cookie jar for. I mean, why not just throw that in there also?
They're being made accessories because they're pushing the money through when they make motions to send money to these society and all that crap. And that's what the RBC was about. It was their own private Western Union. That's why they announced that at an assembly. The RBC is no longer needed. There's going to be a new system in place. Well, we had done that. We had proven that the RBC was nothing more than Western Union to clear money that you have. It was a way to launder money. And once we explained it and articulated it in court, they shut the RBC down in a heartbeat. And they made an announcement, well, we don't need it anymore. There's going to be a new system that we're going to set up because they had found a different way to, launder the money, obviously. They're making so much money that, they can't stop. They can't stop. I mean, if you're bringing in...
My biggest question though is why does a religion need to launder money? It doesn't make any sense. If you're putting your money, which people know, if you're putting your money, the bulk of your money into real estate, because that is what Watchtower does. They will buy buildings, sell them like 5 years later or whatever, and then go and buy more buildings for cheap, have people come fix them up for free so they only have to pay for the materials, have the materials be a tax write-off because they're tax exempt, and keep that building for however long and then sell it off. So they're not having to pay for labor and they can write the taxes off on their building expenses, not to mention however much they get donated to them from people that they're fooled into thinking that they are a kind-hearted, peaceful religion when they're not. Why do they have to launder money? Like, is there also I don't know, a drug scandal going on in the background too? Are drugs also now involved in Watchtower? Like, I'm not trying to pick apart what this guy is saying. I'm trying to honestly figure out what is going on that Watchtower needs to launder money. Or does Watchtower not want to report how much money they are actually making because they want to fool the world into thinking that they are actually poor to try and deter people from suing them even more for all the heinous shit that they've been doing over the past years. So that's kind of something that I'm like wondering what's going on, because I've heard of congregations doing this stuff, but as far as like Watchtower itself having a money launder thing going on, no, never. I've never like heard of that before. But if it turns out to be true, it wouldn't surprise me.
Say a couple of $1 million a month. Are you going to stop that? No, you're not. And that's the thing with them. They're just greedy. And they're greedy and reckless and stupid. You know, and I've learned that you can only deal with men like that one of two ways. And I come from a more harsher background than the average Jehovah's Witness. I've been through some things. I've like I said, I've been to prison. And full disclosure, I've been to prison for 4 things: receiving stolen property, 1 count of check fraud. I wrote a bad check, and 1 count of burglary. I stole GOAT in high school. Long story. It's a mascot for the school team. It's a long story. And the fourth thing I've been accused of is escape. I escaped from prison, and I escaped in '87. I wasn't captured and caught until 1994. And in that period of time, I came in contact with all kinds of people, and that's why I have the contacts to find out things like Kohler not being a Navy SEAL, and I thought I was a random situation, but I've come to find out that I'm not a random situation, and that's the last part of this video, and that's going to be for Mikey, and I don't want that to be publicly consumed just yet, because unless you have some experience or been there, you're going to think it's real far-fetched. But yet I have a feeling that, Mikey, you're not going to think that, because I think you know. It was something you said in a video, and it kind of triggered me. And it was like 6 months ago, maybe longer. But I was watching one of your videos, and you made a comment about the CIA. And when you made that comment about the CIA, that let me know that you knew more about the Watchtower than what you were telling. And that's what led me down the rabbit hole to look into the CIA having a relationship with the Watchtower. And I did find it. Executive Order 13526, signed by Barack Obama when he was then President Barack Obama. But he signed the order making it classified to know, or making it classified to answer the question of whether or not the CIA has some type of partnership with the Watchtower. And as we all know, if the government makes anything classified, it's because they're involved in it, and they don't want to be, they don't want their involvement to be known. I don't know if you can find it. I have a copy of that executive order, and you also have a copy of it now on the USB stick that I sent you. But that's proving that the Watchtower has had a relationship with the CIA. And I'll tell you briefly how and why. Maybe I should say that. I'm getting off track, but that's what this has been about, and it's been an eye-opening experience to know that reporters, journalists, are people that look credible and that are there to do investigative reporting. No, they're not there for that. What they're there to find out is how bad a situation is, and then they get on the phone and call their handler, because everyone seems to have a handler now, and if you don't have a handler, they're going to watch you even more, because that tells them that you think outside the box, and you're not afraid to stand up and say that's wrong. But that's why I initially didn't want to come forward, because I figured, nobody cares, and that was maybe then, under Biden and under Obama, before Trump came along. But when Trump came along, he seemed to write executive orders that were geared towards religious organizations that have fallen through the cracks of accountability. And it seems like that's what's happening now. And I've been at this for 15 years, trying to get someone to care about it. And, everyone spends their time trying to cover it up or gaslight me. Oh, that didn't happen. Oh, no, Mr. Cobb, that didn't happen. I'm just tired of it. And I just, like I said, they destroyed my brother's marriage. They took my kids they took my brother's kids. Um, they killed Arlen by taking his granddaughter from him. That he never recovered from that. And it seemed like the Watchtower was trying to teach us a lesson. We better not ever rise up against them. And here it is, 15 years later. And my father and my brother, the surviving members of the original Menlo Park 2, they have applied for reinstatement. Now I'm going to tell you something that's probably going to blow your mind, but they have been in meetings for the last 2 years. For the last 2 years, they have been in meetings. And they finally decided just maybe it was the Tuesday before last, but they decided, no, we're not going to let you back in. After 2 years of meetings, they wanted to find out what all he had, because he had to confess to everything. And he went in to talk to them, and he was trying to be forthwith. They all they were trying to do is find out what do you know, and how can it hurt us. And
This is why Jehovah's Witnesses are narcissists. Because they do not care about the individual person. So they don't care that they ripped your family away from you. They don't care that the situation that they force you into may make you homeless. And they don't care about your well-being. All they want is the rank and file to do what they say. And elders will absolutely use what they can to further their means so they look better to the organization, to bully the ones that they are supposed to be loving shepherds to and draw them back to Jehovah, and to make sure that that person feels like an absolute pile of shit. Jehovah's Witnesses are guided and led by a system that teaches them to be narcissistic, because they do not care about people. They care about how many donations come through the door, and that's it. They care about their money, they care about their wallets, and that's it.
I collected a lot of evidence, and they're very furious with me. But at the same time, I'm kind of an anomaly that they can't do anything about. I don't care about their Freemason crap. It means nothing. I mean, I was, like I said, I was to the point where I was going to give up. I was going to do a Luigi Mangione, because I figured I'm just going to have to bring enough attention to this situation so that they can't spin doctor it their way, and that these assholes who say they're in law enforcement are going to be forced to do their job. I know that's not the way to handle things, but I didn't know. I mean, I knew there was corruption. I knew there was all kinds of things in the world that just weren't right, but I didn't know it was like this. I mean, sometimes it makes me wonder, what are the cops there for? I mean, they're there for speeders or getting a cat out of a tree or something like that, but when it comes to real things, no. Cops beg off. They try to find any way to not do something. I mean, I went all the way to Phoenix, Arizona, to the FBI office to try to report this, because I wasn't going to the San Francisco office. It's in the courthouse, the same courthouse where we had our case. So I knew going there, and they have a reputation for being very corrupt. So I got on a Greyhound and rode for God knows how long to just go into the Phoenix office and try to report this crime. and I wasted my time in bus fare. You know, it was just frustrating. You know, to know I have this case and wrong has been done. You know, and it's like this. You know, this is for me. It's you've put this cloud over my family. This cloud of
Something else I want to say, I can definitely see how someone on the outside who's never been a Jehovah's Witness, never been into Kingdom Hall, can say that this guy seems a little bit paranoid. He's not being paranoid. It is absolutely true that Watchtower sits out, especially for the people that are born into the organization. Watchtower sits out to control every aspect of your life, and they set people up so other people in their life will watch them even after they leave the organization. And it's very sad that that's the case. And it's very sad, too, that a lot of these people seem like they're paranoid schizophrenics. They're not. They're not paranoid. What they perceive is really happening to them because Watchtower wants people to live in fear because that's how they control is by fear, and they want people to come back to them. So I have felt these same things in the past. I decided to say that I don't care. People wanted me not to write my disassociation letter to Bethel so they can come around me, they can hang out with me, but not because they like me as a person or they like me as a friend, because they're set up to get people who have left or have become quote unquote inactive to come back to the organization. And that's something that I didn't want in my life. That's something that I didn't want happening in my life. Not because of. Hold on for a second. Not because I necessarily had a problem with people in my life, but because I had a problem with Watchtower and I didn't want them in my life any longer. Because anytime you're dealing with another Jehovah's Witness, the end goal is this always the same. They want you to come back to the Kingdom Hall so they can look like that they're a spiritual leader who can lead back lost sheep. They just want it for the local fame of the Kingdom Hall and to try and get a higher status within Jehovah's organization. Do they really care about you as a person? Probably not. But I didn't want that in my life, so I did what I did for that reason. That cuts all of them off because they're sitting over there scared to death, scared shitless that if they talk to me, then they're going to be destroyed during Armageddon or whatever bullshit they believe in. So that basically takes care of that for me. I no longer have to deal and be around people that I don't want to be around and feel pressure to do things that I don't want to do and that I don't care about doing. And life's just better that way. It really is.
suspicion. We hadn't done anything. All we did was stumble upon your secret, an inconvenient truth. We just, you were laundering money. You were stealing money. You were, I mean, and that's the whole thing I kept thinking when I was growing up. Is this really the truth? And that's the good thing about it. It's answered that question for me emphatically, without any doubt or hesitation. I now know it's not the truth. I used to feel a little hesitant. I shouldn't say that. I could be blaspheming. But no, it's not the truth. And in fact, I mean, I just I don't believe in any religion now. I believed in the Watchtower. That was all I believed in. And even though I was a quote unquote worldly guy and went off into other things and whatnot, I tried to live by a certain code that I had learned or developed in growing up, being in and around Jehovah's Witnesses.
And that's another sad truth of being a Jehovah's Witness kid is you see everything around you as one way when you're a kid, and when you grow up and then you choose to leave the organization, you find out that the world is a very different place. Not because the world is a bad place, but because Jehovah's Witnesses are lied to constantly by their organization. So it leads a lot of people to say that God is just a lie, and a lot of people turn to atheism because of it. I'm fine with atheists. Atheists want to be atheists, you go right on ahead. But the thing that I'm saying is what he said a couple minutes ago about, watching what he says because it could be blasphemy. Like, that's something that I just don't care about anymore because I no longer consider myself to be a Christian. And I don't think that I ever was a Christian. I think I was forced into being baptized because I was threatened with my family and not being loved if I didn't. So, that being said, I don't care if what I say is blasphemy because it doesn't matter to me because I'm not a Christian. And if other Christians are offended by that, then so be it. I don't care one way or another. But it's also another thing that Watchtower causes. Watchtower causes people to not believe in Christianity because those people that came out of Watchtower when they were in Watchtower were told, well, Watchtower is the only true Christianity. And that's something else that is a complete lie because I have talked to plenty of other Christians in my life, and I have talked to people that were good people and they were Christians. I'm not going to say that they were good people because they were Christians, but they were good people and they were Christians. And when I told them everything that had to go on with Watchtower's rules and why they claim that they're, the one true Christian organization, they were just like dumbfounded by it. Not because they couldn't believe how good it sounded, but because they couldn't believe how horrible it sounded. That because you wanted to go to another religion or walk a different path in life, you now had to lose your whole family because of that.
And Watchtower publications. But when Mikey had that video that showed all those hidden symbols in the Watchtower, and I was thinking, why didn't I ever see this? Why didn't I ever notice this? And it's like the scales had dropped from my eyes, and then I could see it for what it really was. And then I realized there is a lot of Freemasonry associated with the Watchtower, because there was a couple brothers in my congregation who were Freemasons, and I didn't know that until after they died. And it was chilling, because Freemasonry is just, they're the foot soldiers that are supposed to pave the way for the Antichrist. And I'm thinking, and this is what you're associated with, so it couldn't be the truth. And I was convinced of that it's not the truth. It's just, and then
That's something else I think is like ridiculous when he talks about the symbolism. which I've turned back into old magazines even before I started watching Kevin Mikey because of some like screenshots or whatever I would see online sometimes, and I would go back and look in those magazines, and I would definitely see the symbolism that was pointed out in those screenshots. But the biggest thing is Watchtower condemns symbols. They condemn symbols, and they do so where if a person has a cross in their house, or if a person is associating their religion with a symbol besides the JW logo, uh, they will be punished within the congregation for it. Either they will be uh, reproved in some way, or they will be excommunicated, since they no longer use the term disfellowshipping. And it's just ridiculous because what he's saying is true. All those symbols do exist in the Watchtower publications and now in the videos, and they haven't gone away. So even though people have pointed this out, and it's been kind of like public knowledge that that people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses can see, but people who are Jehovah's Witnesses have a very hard time of seeing it. It's like they're still there. They haven't gone anywhere. And it's so, I don't know. It goes in line with the two opposing opinion thing that Watchtower loves pushing on people to control them, because it's like, if you believe in symbols in your religion, then you're not a true Christian. But oh, by the way, uh, look at all these symbols that we put in our magazines, but not really, more subconsciously, which is even worse.
Then when I started looking at the repetition, the words that are used, it was first level programming, um, almost similar to the MK Ultra program. Um, so what you have here is 8 million people who have all been given first level programming, and they're ready for the next level, whatever that may be, you know. But when I really started looking at it, then I realized this is something evil that's been masked to look like something good. And I just, it just, when I started looking at it that way, I realized that the Watchtower was dangerous. Not because they were dangerous, but because of what they were teaching, the doctrine. It just, now I'm so clear-headed. But the thing about the way, which is, like I said, the way they teach the Bible and the way they indoctrinate you is almost the same as first level brainwashing. That comes right out of the CIA handbook. you know, it just, and then when I found out that the Watchtower is involved in Project Stargate, that's, I'm gonna say that's a conversation for me and Mikey to have, but because there's so many things about the Watchtower that I know now, and it's like I can't tell anyone because I have to wait until they can accept that this is maybe questionable. If I say the Watchtower is worshiping Satan, I mean, they're programmed to defend themselves and jump all over you. Attack the attacker. The same thing that Scientology uses. So they're going to attack you. How could you say that? And then 10 years from now, when it's discovered, that certain things were at play, then they'll say, wow, that guy wasn't crazy. Yeah, there's really some satanic things going on. That's kind of how it is. You know a secret, and you have to wait till everyone else progresses to the point that they can accept the secret. But, I mean, I can give you everything you need. I mean, I can explain certain things. I can connect certain dots. Okay, let me put it to you this way. And this is what you really should be looking at and thinking about. In the midst of this Jeffrey Epstein crap, what most people don't know is there was a 17-year-old girl who wound up in Jeffrey Epstein's bed. She was 17, baptized, and married, and in Epstein's bed. How do you think that girl, who's one of Jehovah's Witnesses, wound up in Epstein's bed? See, that's why Epstein was hushed up pretty quick, as far as I'm concerned. Epstein was hushed up very quick. But there again, like I said, you should be asking yourself, how could a blue-collar working class girl, or from a blue-collar working class family, wind up in billionaire Jeffrey Epstein's bed? See, that's because she had to have been introduced to Epstein. She had to have been provided to Epstein. I'll let you stew on that. Think about that a little bit longer. But the Watchtower is not squeaky clean like everybody thinks. And I'm jumping up and down saying, hey, there's fire here. And everyone's looking at me like, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're an enemy of Jehovah. You're this, you're that. And, it's not that at all. It's just I see things with different eyes than you. And I'm able to connect dots. And, and it's just frustrating. And that's, like I said, why I wasn't going to come forward. But this needs to be told. And people need to know what was going on behind the scenes. And how dirty the Watchtower is. And how far they'll go to destroy someone that they feel threatened by. It's a business. Here they are pushing the COVID vaccine, but not telling anybody that they're investors in the mRNA and the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. So every time they were setting up, vaccine centers in the parking lot of the Kingdom Halls, you can just drive through, don't even get out of your car, roll up your sleeve, and we can vaccinate you at the Kingdom Hall. And what you don't realize is, it was a self-dealing transaction. A form of fraud. They weren't disclosing that they were part owner or they had stock in the company. Okay, they were just telling you, we strongly suggest you get vaccinated, because it's just pumping up their profits. It was nothing more than a self-dealing transaction. I remember Marcus Vaughn took some video footage and showed, that they were all set up in the parking lot ready to vaccinate whoever, and they were pushing it pretty hard. They weren't saying you have to do this, but if you didn't, you were taking privileges or you couldn't do certain things, and because they were really trying to force you to get vaccinated, and not telling anybody that they were profiting. Fraud by deception, or by omission. It's just the Watchtower seems to be steeped in fraud everywhere you look. It's just everybody's afraid to do their job because they're afraid of the Watchtower, and they seem to be more afraid of the Watchtower than the Vatican, and that's what really pissed me off. You guys aren't tough. I know tough guys. You guys are not tough, and it's just, and like I said, it was coming down to a finality, and before you came along, because I'm just so tired of them getting away with everything. and destroying people's lives and never apologizing, never saying I'm sorry, and acting like they're so lofty and they're holier than thou and they're infallible men and they're anointed, and they're not. And they're not. They're just 11 or 12 bastards who think they're somebody important, and they aren't. They can't even take responsibility for anything that they do. It's always we can't come to court because I'm serving where the need is great. They're worried about being arrested, and I know the day is going to come when they're going to kick the door in, and the FBI is going to just kick the door in and confiscate this and take that and arrest this person and arrest that person. I know it's coming. I just thought I wouldn't see it in my lifetime because I was just so sick of this crap. So I don't know if my evidence I've collected over the years can be helpful. I think it can be. I think this is a clear case of when an unstoppable object meets a fast-moving force, or however that goes, because I think the Watchtower is afraid of this. They're certainly afraid of my father and my brother, because here it is 15 years later, and they tried to get reinstated, and went to meetings for 2 years, only to be told last week or week before, we're not going to reinstate you. Sorry. Why did you have me come here 2 years in a row? They met with them, and what's insulting is what came out of the meeting was they wanted my father to fall on his sword and just take, what we do to you, just take it, and we'll fix you up somewhere down the road. And you already have this cloud hanging over our head, and the people that we thought were our friends and family aren't. So, okay, fine. That's the beauty of it. I now know who my friends are, and I don't want to associate with anyone who is going to the Kingdom Hall, because those are people that they're blindly following. And if I don't convince anyone of anything else, I would just say, the Watchtower is built on fraud. Get out of it. I mean, the beauty of it is, the beauty of it is, on that final day of judgment, you can stand and say, I was misled. I was misled. And, you're, as far as I'm concerned, you're good. As the Bible speaks about stumbling others. So it comes across to me like, well, you aren't going to be penalized if someone else stumbled you, but you should know better. But how can I penalize you when you've been stumbled by other people? And I'm telling you, I would tell anyone if they were in the Watchtower, because we had to sign a non-disclosure act, and once for certain evidence in the original case, and I wasn't going to sign it because I knew what it was about. It was about keeping secrets, and I begrudgingly signed it. But I knew while I was signing the paper, I am going to scream to the top of my lungs, and whatever's in these papers that we're going to get, I'm just going to tell it all. And what evidence we were asking for was their personal files. My father, Brother St. Clair, Arlen St. Clair, we asked for their personal files. We made them under subpoena, and first they said there's no personal files. We don't keep personal files. And I said that's a lie, because how do you keep hours? How do you keep time? How do you keep, how many Bible studies? And suspiciously, that's changed now. A lot of the changes that the Watchtower has undergone in the last couple of years are because of the fallout from the original case. We showed them where they were weak, and they have spent the last few years trying to fortify these little areas. Yeah, that's all the Watchtower does. They find out what you're doing or what you're going to use against them, and then they run ahead and try to, fix it up, and then try to create their own narrative for it. And that's just sickening. It is. And I'm tired of it, and I'm willing to work with anyone who's sincerely, going to expose this. Because, if I have to walk, pay my own ticket or whatever, I want to help. If you want me to testify as a witness, I've told you the good part and the bad parts of my background. The only thing I have going for me is I haven't been arrested in 30 years. I mean, most of the crimes I committed, I was a kid in high school. In this case, it doesn't matter because the evidence I've collected is hard evidence that's been buried. So it's not anything where it's he said, she said, and all this. No, it's not that. All the evidence I have is what I've presented from documents I have gotten from various sources and from chasing down other cases and other leads. But like I said, there's a lot of reasons why I'm coming forward now. Like I said, one of the main reasons is Arlen is deceased now, and I feel his name should be cleared. His name should be cleared. He did nothing wrong. All we did is discover that the Watchtower was corrupt, and we tried to say something about it. We tried to give the Watchtower a chance to explain first, but their attitude is we don't explain to rank and file. You just do what you're told, even if you don't understand it. And now I see why they tell people that, because they want people who, somebody comes into, a county office and, I want you to cash this check for me. They'll do it. No questions asked. And it's just not the way. No. And for me, this is personal because, you've come after my family. You've tried to hurt my family in various ways. You took my brother's wife and kids. He's married for 18 years. You make one phone call and his life is turned upside down. It's time to put a stop to it. And I am for that, one way or another. And I'm sorry if I sound forceful or a proponent for violence. I'm really not, but these men only understand few things. They only understand what gets in the way of their money and bad publicity. And I told someone at the service desk that once, when we got him on the phone, I told him, you can have a big scandal or you can have a small scandal. But you must accept you're going to have a scandal. And the Watchtower is so arrogant. They feel if we're going to crash and burn, we're going to bring it down and crash and burn it our way. Like you control everything. So I'm just going to give you this little package to start with. And again, I was just recounting my story as chaotic as it probably is. And I hoped I answered some of your questions along the way. But if you have any questions, any comments or anything, I'm open. Now, I say be careful because they have an AI that they're using, but this AI they use it for surveillance because you can pay 6 guys to sit in a room all day, or you can have an AI who can monitor the whole internet. So they have an AI, and this AI can it can it's a hell of a system. Um, this AI can retrieve letters, so that's why I told you up front. If you don't get this USB stick, that means it was intercepted by someone. They have a system that can tap phone calls, read emails, um, uh, pull mail that's in transit. Mail that's in transit, they can pull it out, pull your letter out. Their reach is incredible since they started using this AI. I don't know the name of it. I think it's well, I don't really know enough about it, but they're using an AI. Because there was someone who called me and wanted to talk about certain things, and I thought I was talking to an old friend, and I ran into him a couple of weeks later, and I said, "Oh yeah, about that thing," and he said, "What thing are you talking about?" I said, "Well, you called my house and we talked to him." He said, "I haven't called your house in months," and I thought, "Son of a gun," you know. But there's an AI, and it can copy voices and inflections of voices, and it's very good. And so they have used this system, and they can block phone calls. And from what I was talking to Kimmy about, um, she's experienced a little of this. But this system can block phone calls so that a person cannot call you. They can live, next door to you, but can't get a hold of you. Um, and of course, naturally, you'll hang up the phone and think, "Oh, I'll try my call later," and they'll make it so that you can't get a hold of anyone. You can be literally in a city with millions of people, but this AI can reduce you and isolate you down to nobody. I don't know how it works, but you could be standing next to someone and it won't matter. You know, it's also a tracking system. It can track you. This AI has tracked me literally all over the world. Um, and at first I thought, oh, I'm losing my mind. I'm paranoid and all this. But now, it's funny. The things I thought were paranoia and conspiracy years ago, they're now confirming. It's a general AI that can do everything. Um, and I just, like I said, I just want to get away from the Watchtower, because it's like it's the only religion. Once you join, it's like they own you for life, or they think they own you, and I'm just tired of that. And
It is true that they think that they own you because they're just a bunch of abusive narcissists that run their organization off trauma and nothing else. Um, but what he was saying about the AI is pretty impressive. Um, we already know from ads that companies are using AI to target people for whatever their needs may be. So, but the fact that they are now using AI, and so they know that when something is said about them, they can go look it up. Or if they know that, maybe like he says, two people are talking, then they know who is doing what and what is being said, because that's how paranoid and how hungry they are for control, that they don't want anyone saying anything bad about them, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous to want that and then act the way that Watchtower does. It is absolutely ridiculous that there's nothing that they won't try to silence people while those people are actually trying to speak the truth. And it's kind of like I said for years, the truth just can't handle the truth. And that's a sad fact about it.
You know, if you're not going to leave my family alone, and if you're going to drag our name through the mud and say we did this and we did that when we are the ones that exposed it and was trying to report it and you know, get it taken care of, and you know, I'm just at my wit's end, because I just want something done, somebody to take seriously the evidence that I have, and you know, I don't know, but there it is. That's all the information I have. Let's see if I have anything else. Yeah, so you should now. I have other evidence that I will provide to you. Yeah, but I gave you that evidence to start with, but there's a lot more, and I just don't want to overload you if you're not really interested. You know, I don't know what all you're looking for, but I can. You know, if you're gonna go after them under Executive Order 13818, believe me, you got now some hard examples of fraud, and with the provable pedophilia that we had, and the convictions out of Pennsylvania, you can make a great case against them. I just want to see somebody bring justice to them, and I'm just sick and tired of, you know, them abusing people and not, you know, what is the harm in saying I'm sorry? That's the most abusive thing you can do to an abuse victim. Not acknowledge their pain. And the Watchtower has consistently not acknowledged anyone's pain. And that's not right. I made some mistakes, like whatever else, but I know right from wrong. And this is wrong. And I just want to make the wrong things right.
Wow, I know. It's, you know, two long videos, and I want to thank all of you who, you know, stuck with us through all of this. A lot of information. I know some of it sounds almost unbelievable, but you know, it's things that we have been hearing for years now, things that have been going on. So thank you, John. I appreciate, you know, you taking the time to do this video for us, and thank you for allowing us to share it with everyone else. And you know, we feel your pain. I mean, these families have been through hell, and he's right. This is not right. This is not right. And we're so glad this is getting exposed. And we feel the same way as you. You know, we have seen so many try, you know, for the past 12 years to get investigations going and stuff, only to see, you know, most of them fail. And so we really hope, you know, we do have a hope that something will get done with this investigation. There again, we're not holding our breath, you know, expecting miracles, but it would be nice. Also, in the files he did send me, there was a several page letter that they had written to the congregations, to the congregation Jehovah's Witnesses, and I mean, it's just wow. It's just wow. Of all, there's a lot more that was going on behind the scenes that he didn't mention in any of these videos, and like his brother's JW wife, all it took was one phone call. There's a little bit more going on behind the scenes, like she was having an affair, and yeah. So, oh, good Jehovah Witness. Yeah, right. But I did want to mention something here that he didn't mention in the video. When it got to be known that this case had been filed back in 2010, I believe it was, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the local Jehovah's Witnesses. Now we know this is true because back in 2001, 2002, when Barbara Anderson was about to be on that news report, was it Dateline or something like that? It was actually announced from the platform at our local congregation not to watch that program because it was put on by apostates.
That is how every program that Jehovah's Witnesses know is going to come out, no matter what's it about, no matter if it's about domestic abuse, psychological abuse going on in the congregation, which is very common for Jehovah's Witnesses, pedophilia scandal or cover up that is now being exposed. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's not in a positive light to the society about Jehovah's Witnesses, then they will tell the congregations to not watch it because it is about apostasy. And apostate is pushing this. This is attack from Satan's world. And you don't want to support Satan's world, so don't watch it. This is what Jehovah's Witnesses are constantly told. And it's not just back then, it's now also. And it's just like, how long are they going to be like believing this? Like, how long are they going to be believing this? Because a lot of this stuff is just so ridiculous with what's coming out as far as them being exposed that they can't even hide it. Like, I don't understand how people still believe it, but somehow they do. So what Kim is saying hasn't really changed. It just hasn't. It has not changed. It's still the same.
And it was apostates, lies, and half-truths. Well, I will be the first to admit, I must have been a bad JW because my daughter and I watched that. And it was very enlightening. Why we didn't wake up then, I don't know. I guess it just wasn't the universe's time for us. We had to learn a lot more lessons from Watchtower before we woke up. It's a good.
I think in 2019, maybe it was in 2020. Yeah, 2020. After the main wave, the first big wave of the pandemic hit, we were all told in the Kingdom Hall that there's going to be a video that airs and not to watch it because it's by apostates, and lo and behold, it's a video about someone like victims of abuse from pedophilia and also people going through psychological abuse in JW by elders. And that's what we were told not to watch. Well, I sat there and watched it because I wanted to know what was so good that they would make an announcement not to watch it. And what was said in that video were the exact things that I myself experienced in the organization. So if they're going to go around and they're going to constantly cover up things that are being said while also at the same time watching what everyone else is saying, I mean, most roads are two ways. You can't always have it your way, Watchtower. And the fact that you think you can just further shows to XJW's defense that you are narcissist.
Good thing we did, because we did learn a lot, you know, in those past, in those, 15, 20 years. But anyway, I want to mention that the same thing happened to them. When this court case was filed in 2010, the Jehovah's Witnesses were told that apostates were doing this, and they were directed to start a whisper campaign in an effort to try to discredit Jason Cobb. Now remember, Jason Cobb is John's brother, and he was not only an elder in the congregation, but he was also the presiding overseer known back then. Now they're known as Kobe's, the coordinator of the body of elders. And it was him that discovered, the money transactions that were going on. And so, that's their only crime. Trying to get somebody to listen to them, that they found out about the fraud, the embezzlement, and all of that. And all this that was going on. That was their crime. And then they're kicked out, removed, disfellowshipped as being apostates. Well, general announcements were made locally in all the congregations in California that anyone reading court documents could be disfellowshipped. They deemed the documents to be rantings of apostates. See, this is how they are. And these are court documents. They're not rantings of apostates. Court wouldn't even look at something if they were just rantings of apostates. They'd be thrown out. It's just crazy. But you see what lengths they go to. And these JWs are under such fierce mind control that they will do anything the elders ask them to. Well, heck, even, their publications and governing body members and videos and everything have said, be ready to obey the elders no matter what.
At that time, life-saving direction that we received from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. Now is the time for any who may be putting their trust in secular education, material things, or human institutions to adjust their thinking.
To be ready to obey, even if it doesn't sound right, even if it sounds illegal. Obey the elders. Yeah, well, we see, So anyway, thank you for sticking with us through all of this. It's been quite the, ordeal. And going through these documents is just, wow. And then, my surprise to find out there's even more. So, John, yes, whenever you're ready, hit me. As the kids say, ready for these files. And so appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching, and you have a wonderful week. Bye.
Okay, so that kind of, I guess that's kind of the end of that for right now, at least. Very interesting. I do remember hearing about the Menlo Park scandal back in I think 2014. But never heard much else about it. Never heard where it went, what it led to, or even much of what it was about. So being able to hear it almost 11 years later, it just shows that Watchtower cannot keep things covered up like they believe that they can. And I'm sure as time moves on, more scandals like these that have tried and been covered up will come out, and more stories of Jehovah's Witnesses hiding pedophiles in the congregation are going to come out too. So hopefully we'll be able to hear something good come out against Watchtower's favor about this in the future. I'm going to go back to